Hi, I'm Scott Cuthbert, co-founder of Safeopedia and host of the Safeonomics podcast. And today our special guest is Matthew Hart. He's the founder of SOTER AI. And we do a really interesting kind of deep dive conversation around AI solutions, the importance AI has in the safety industry, and where it's going in the future, and how important it's going to be for safety professionals to become somewhat experts in the AI technology, AI solutions that are out there in order to stay current, move their organizations forward, and advance their careers within the industry. So join us for this really interesting and exciting episode. Thanks so much. Well, hey, welcome everybody to another episode of Safeonomics. I'm Scott Cuthbert, co-founder of Safeopedia, and I'm excited today to have Matthew Hart, founder of SOTER, with us today. So I'm going to turn it over to Matthew to do a quick intro and provide a little background on SOTER, and then we're going to jump into the questions. So Matthew, why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
Super. Thanks, Scott. Happy to be on here. So my name's Matthew Hart. I'm the founder of SOTER. Started the company in 2018. Started with a wearable sensor, actually. So a sensor that would help industrial workers reduce their exposure to musculoskeletal risks and thus reduce those injuries. And the inspiration for that idea actually came from my background. So I'm a mechanical engineer originally, specializing in reliability engineering. And working in the mining industry in Australia, so in the outback on massive mining operations. And my job as a reliability engineer was to focus on making sure that our equipment, of which there was a lot, wasn't breaking down unexpectedly, because unplanned breakdowns are incredibly expensive. If the wrong thing breaks down, you could be looking at millions of dollars of lost productivity every single hour. So some things can be very critical, right?
Right.
So as a reliability engineer, what I was doing is I was analyzing, maintenance trends. But actually what happened during my career there was a shift to sensors. So sensors capturing data, understanding what that data was in real time, and then understanding if something wrong was happening with a particular asset or piece of equipment in advance, right? So that you could do something about it. You could do some sort of more planned maintenance than waiting for it to become really bad and then doing unplanned maintenance. So that was the original idea and concept behind SOTER, because we did the same, but for humans rather than machines. But yeah, like it's been a wild ride, I would say. Now we're into our third generation product called SOTER AI. It's an AI compliance platform. So we've had a lot of pivots, and I wouldn't say pivots, a progression and evolution along the way.
Right. Yeah. Because I think when we first started working with your organization, it was more of the analytics side, right? And then I think you guys have evolved pretty quickly with the emerging technologies.
Yeah, absolutely. We've always been on the latest trend, or we've been a very early adopter of new technologies, of which one now is LLMs, and we'll be talking about that later, I guess.
Yeah, and so let's jump into it, because I think that there's obviously a lot of benefits. Maybe there's a few drawbacks, but I think the uncertainty is probably the biggest challenge for safety professionals right now. So how did AI, you kind of talked about it becoming a focus for you guys, but was there a specific aha moment, or was there a specific event that kind of pushed you in that direction?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I would make a general characterization that everyone thinks AI just existed in the last 2 years, right? So we're all like, wow, ChatGPT, and then different LLMs, and now everyone's talking about AI and uses AI. But our journey with AI started back in 2018 on day one of building that wearable sensor that I was talking about. And what that sensor would do, like, people would wear it on their shirt and it would track the different movements that they were making throughout the day. And then we would categorize those movements into the risk of effectively getting a back injury ultimately. And in building those algorithms, we did a lot of machine learning, which is an AI technique. So we would feed that data into machine learning algorithms, or we would build these algorithms that would then do those measurements that I talked about. And the second bit of AI, or the other AI technique we used at the time, was called neural networks. So this was processing the data in a way, but we would label the data to say if someone made a particular movement, were they moving an object, and was that object heavy or was that object light? Because obviously the weight of an object makes a big difference to the probability of being injured. And the way that I described this at the time was a neural network is kind of like your brain processing something. And the example that I used was people drinking out of coffee cups. I don't know if you've ever noticed in films and on TV, people drinking out of a coffee cup where there's clearly no liquid in the cup. And the reason why there's no liquid is if they spill, like you have to change costume or change wardrobe and all that sort of stuff, right? And it's very expensive. But our brain is able to look at that image or that video and say, hey, there's no liquid in the cup, right? Like we're trained that way. And we were doing something similar with the data that we were collecting. We were feeding the information to the neural network saying, was that a heavy object? Was that a light object? And then feeding that labeled data many, many, many times, built a model so that when new data came in, the neural network was able to determine, oh, that was a heavy object or that was a light object. So we were doing that back in 2019, 2020. The second generation product that we made was a computer vision technology, which would measure all the different body parts of someone doing some sort of work, and then doing an ergonomic assessment purely with that computer vision. So the ruler, the rebar, all that sort of stuff. Creating those reports purely from computer vision. So that was our second generation product, and now into LLMs. And that was an interesting discovery for us, because when this technology came out, we got very excited. Like we were probably working with LLMs probably 3 years ago now. And it sort of it allowed us to think from day one again. We have this new revolutionary technology.
Right.
Why do we need to solve just musculoskeletal injuries? Like, how do we as a safety company, but also a technology company, how do we help with all types of safety, or even more so, all types of risk and compliance? So we actually started probably a year and a half ago now, going to our customer base. We had about 70 customers at the time or something. We went to a whole bunch of them and we said, all right, we understand musculoskeletal injuries. Tell me about your bigger problems that we can solve. And then we understood, we knew this already, but understanding the difficulty of managing incidents, reducing the risks, implementing the right controls, making sure that you're being predictive, not preventative, and then finally, the complexity of compliance. You've got a lot of regulations in the US. There's tens of thousands of different individual regulations that everyone needs to be compliant with, which was a very difficult task for safety professionals to do, because there's so much information, right? And humans hit some sort of limitation, but LLMs didn't. And we're like, wow, okay, we could potentially solve this problem. And so we started building SOTER AI, which is now a platform that does a whole bunch of those things.
Cool. So what does AI mean in the context of EHS? You touched on it a little bit, but what are the practical use cases today?
Yeah. So the way I like to describe this, I take a step back and I like to describe safety in this way. It's a battle between risks and controls, or hazards and controls, you could say. And the way I describe this to people, it's like Lord of the Rings, this is epic battles of you've got armies going up against each other. You've got all these hazards going on in this organization. You've got all these controls that are in place or should be in place, or are prescribed to be in place, but not in place, and you're in this never-ending battle between the hazards and the controls. And the safety professional's role is to make sure that the controls win and the hazards don't become incidents, right?
Right.
And that's an incredibly complex task, because there's so much going on in organizations. You've got hundreds, sometimes thousands, even tens of thousands of people doing all this different sort of stuff, making all these independent sort of decisions, doing all these different types of work. And then I mentioned all those controls. You've got, training sessions, you've got policy documents, you've got PPE, you've got you as a safety professional are implementing controls as well. It's a complex task. And the way that I look at how AI can help with this, especially from the lens of building a LLM-powered solution, a platform that helps safety professionals do this, is I want to support them in making sure that the controls win. So like our AI solution, for example, SOTER AI, I'll take it as my example in the story. It goes through all the hazards that have happened and are happening, right? It goes through all the incidents, that have happened and are happening. It goes through all the hazards that are being captured or not being captured. It goes through data sources to actually spot hazards, as well as having a deep understanding of all your controls. So all your policies, all your documentation, all your training stuff is uploaded into SOTER AI. And we build this big model between the hazards, the incidents, and the controls to really understand what it is that you're doing. So there's one example of like how AI can really assist, because it can sort data in a way that no human would be able to, and spot your next incident or your next hazard that's about to become an incident, at a scale, and I think also at an accuracy that humans really struggle to replicate.
Yeah. It's amazing how far the technology has come, like you said, in a short period of time. Just maybe pause for a quick second and just ask, just for listeners, because you have a mining background, is this technology and solution viable in any industry, or is there specific industries that you guys are focusing on?
We are pretty industry indiscriminate, so we work in a whole bunch of different industries. But I would say our sweet spot is heavy-ish sort of industry. So we're not working with finance companies or people with a lot of office workers, right? Like we're out in the field, manufacturing plants, distribution centers, stocking shops. We work in hospital. We work with and in hospitals. And then a huge part of our business is also in insurance. So we work with brokers and carriers who are also trying to manage these risks and helping their clients manage these risks, right? So for the broker, that's one of the services that they offer. For carriers, they have a financial incentive to do this because less claims means less payouts and increase their profitability as well. So yeah, we work with a whole bunch of industries is the answer. Anywhere where this battle is happening between the hazards and the controls, that's our sweet spot.
Yeah. Okay. So you touched on, AI, neural networks, LLMs. Like, what are some of the most common misconceptions or fears that you guys see when talking to the safety department in an organization?
Yeah, so I think the number one fear from people is, and from a lot of people, not just safety professionals, is that AI is going to take over the world, right? And like that's not completely wrong. It's a technology that is going to change our world and is already changing our world. Yeah. It's a very powerful technology. LLMs are just a technology as well, by the way. So ChatGPT or Gemini or any of those other solutions that we use are actually an LLM plus a client. You're actually interacting with some sort of UI to then get the LLM to work. So LLMs aren't just ChatGPT. LLMs are the models that then feed into other solutions. And these models are what is taking over the world. Like every technology provider is building these into their technology or building new technologies like we are, right? Like we're not trying to retrofit it into something old. We're building something new. But yeah, the fear of it taking over, like it is going to change a lot, and it's going to definitely take over a lot of the things that we do. But you could also look at it as a huge advantage or enabler for what we're trying to do. So I don't think safety professionals are going anywhere, right? Unless those, I would maybe argue the ones that can't change and adapt with the changing technology, like these ones, we're all going to be in a bit of trouble. But those that understand AI-powered solutions and how to apply them and what their role is in working with this technology are going to be fine, you know? So one of the fears of AI is that it can make a wrong decision. You know, how do you know it's just a black box? How do you know how it's thinking and what sort of decision it's making? Well, that's the role for the human, right? So these people should have the experience and the understanding and the training to sense check everything and make sure that the AI powered solution is making the right decisions, you know, and they're built into the feedback mechanism. So there's one example. But then also, like, rather than replacing safety professionals, they're just enhancing them. So you can spend less time doing the really boring stuff. You know, take policy review as an example. Some of these documents are, you know, dozens, if not hundreds of pages long sometimes. And then the regulations that they have to adhere to are into the tens of thousands. Like, nobody likes this job. So if you spend less time doing that sort of work, but more time out in the field, talking with your team, worrying about culture, you know, and then using the tool to do all the boring stuff, or you can do all the EQ sort of stuff, the stuff that humans can do very well. There's one good example of like how the technology is not going to take over completely from, you know, needing people within the loop. So we'll end up doing more. I think it's exciting. We'll be more effective. There will be massive disruption. I think that's fair to say. But my advice to everyone I talk to on this is, like, be one of those early adopters. Be excited by it, because it actually is very exciting. Change is constant. Like, how many revolutions of change have we gone through? You know, even in my lifetime, my childhood, I didn't have smartphones, right? Now my kids are running around. Like, we've all gone through these different changes. We all get like a little bit scared sometimes, but I think if you can embrace it, I think it's actually very exciting.
Yeah, that's a great point, because, you know, most of the safety professionals in the Safeopedia community that we talk to, you know, feel overwhelmed, you know, feel a little undervalued, you know, within their organization from time to time, and safety, you know, in those small, medium-sized organizations especially, can be misunderstood, and the safety professional can end up wearing multiple hats, and so yeah, I think your point about how it can help with some of the administrative tasks or some of the reviews to really lighten the load, so folks, safety professionals can focus on keeping people safe, is a great point. And maybe we'll go into the, you know, safety professionals in those mid-sized organizations. You know, how can AI realistically support that small team? Because that's, again, another thing that we hear is that, you know, I don't have the budget, or my organization isn't sophisticated enough. But I do agree, you know, they should be early adopters, and they should be looking at this sooner than later. So what have you seen, and what's your advice for those small, medium-sized organizations, those small safety teams?
Yeah, so we have of SOTER AI, we have over 200 individual organizations using it at the moment. So it's scaled up quite quickly. And over 100 of those would be single person safety, or teams, but it's just one person, right? And I think these people, like I know them quite deeply now. You know, I've had many conversations with them, and some of them are our power users, and, you know, I get a lot of feedback from them as well. And to understand their situation is really interesting, and they're in challenging situations, I would say. So usually they're spread across multiple locations. So it's, you know, very difficult. Well, they can't literally be everywhere at once. And then, because it's not a big organization usually that's been around for a very long period of time, that's grown into a mature sort of organization, there's also sometimes an interesting perception of safety. Yeah, like, safety is there to make sure that we don't end up in court, and hopefully no one has a fatal accident, right? Sort of undermining the power that a good safety professional can be, because a safety professional can do a lot more than just don't make sure something really bad happens. A lot of the safety professionals I've met and worked with, I would describe them as massive productivity enhancers. If you reduce incidents, you actually increase your productivity. Just like a machine, if a machine broke down unexpectedly, it's not the cost of fixing the machine that we really care about. Like it's
Right.
insignificant. It's the tens of millions of dollars per hour that you really care about. It's like, man, I would buy a new machine if I could to save that $10 million.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these safety professionals, they're firefighting if they're by themselves. They're overstretched geographically, but then also in their workload. Um, they probably need two or three people a lot of the time, but they only have one. And these people get a lot of value out of leveraging AI, like SOTER AI, but there's other solutions as well. So what we see a lot of them do is, they sort of created documentation. Let's start with your safety program, right? Like every company should have a well-defined, thought out, relevant safety program. Well, I don't know if you've ever tried writing one of these, but they're incredibly, in my opinion, quite mind-numbing work. Like you have to start from scratch. How do you even build one of these things? Maybe you take one from your previous organization. You try to adapt it to what it is that your business is now doing. You make it. It might take you a few weeks, and you're like, "Oh man, I hope I never have to think about that again." With an AI platform like ours, you're able to create really high quality safety program documentation um, relevant to the incidents, the hazards, and the risks that are occurring in your actual business. And you're able to create really, in that documentation, you're able to create really relevant controls and procedures and processes that will keep your organization safe. And this doesn't take you weeks and months. You can do this in, let's say, with a bit of back and forwards, you can do this in a day, right? You could have the first version ready within maybe a number of hours, and then ready to be reviewed by people because we've already agreed AI isn't always perfect. We need the humans in the loop, right? So all of a sudden, you've turned what used to take a month into a day, freeing up 29 or 30 other days, right? Which is awesome. Because with that, you can then go out in the field. We have another tool within the platform that, for example, will help you do an inspection out in the field. So you could have all the great documentation in the world, but it's what people happen when they do their work that actually matters. So there's another tool to allow them to assist with that. So you can take a picture, or you can film people. Even you can take minutes worth of video on your camera. And then you're able to ingest that into the SOTER AI platform, which then analyzes that photo or the video against your internal documentation, as well as all the regulations that your company has to adhere to. And it does a risk assessment effectively for you. It says, I see these hazards are present. These hazards matter because of your risk profile. We have a whole risk intelligence section. As I said, they were built on your incidents and your controls and your hazards. So these hazards that I see are actually relevant and important to your business. The assessment can say, I see these controls are in place, but I don't see these controls are in place, and they should be in place based on your safety program documentation. Okay, that's interesting. But then also on top of that, you should have these controls in place as well, because these risks are unmanaged, and you've got nothing in your documentation as well. So it's able to do all this analysis based on your real world, what's actually happening out in the field, as well as understanding the context of your organization to give you a really, comprehensive but also very accurate analysis of like what you can do to make your people safer. So that's another tool that people use. Some of the other things that single person safety teams need to do, they need to do reporting to the board, they need to do reporting they report down as well sometimes, or present data flows down as well to people. So we have tools to help them with that, data analytics tools within our platform. There's tools that help people do ergonomic assessments. And that's actually a good point that I haven't touched on yet. Single people safety teams are expected to be experts in a whole bunch of different disciplines.
Right.
So big companies, like they will have an ergonomist, right? And they will have a safety specialist, and they will have a training specialist. Small companies with one person, the person has to be all of it. And like, it's just not feasible. So these tools powered by AI really support them and allow them to be experts in all these different disciplines. And there's a whole bunch of value created through that, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've been sort of saying for years, AI is not going to replace the safety professional, but the safety professional that knows how to leverage AI will replace the professionals that don't, right? Because I think exactly that example that you described is now all of a sudden you're one person, but you can handle the responsibility of multiple areas within an organization. So kind of digging into that a little bit, and we're going to get into kind of budget constraints and those sorts of things as well. But again, that is something we hear a lot about: getting management buy-in, getting organizations to invest in these solutions. You mentioned earlier kind of that productivity angle, and we're definitely hearing more and more safety professionals, I think, approach safety as an operational efficiency, not just obviously the first priority is keeping people safe, but in doing so, in building those proper work procedures, you're actually improving productivity within an organization. So you have any examples or case studies where you can kind of prove out the savings that you're helping organizations achieve?
Yeah. I have a bunch. So one example I can think of off the top of my head is actually, it's an insurance broker, but I think it's still relevant to the wider safety industry. It's just that we were able to quantify this one very well. So they have a team of 6 risk professionals that will go to their client sites and effectively do audits of their documentation, of the work that's being done, of the site itself, right? Like of their buildings and everything, all their assets. They will usually come onto site for a day, and then they will write a report full of recommendations. And I guess a whole bunch of your listeners have had that experience before, through their broker, sometimes through their carrier, but most of the time their broker. And with this team of 6 people, what we were able to quantify with them over a 6-week period was a $30,000 savings, $30,000 saving over that 6-week period. So you break that down between the 6 people, 6 weeks. So what that actually allowed them to do, like, they were actually able to spend more time with clients. So I think it's even the wrong metric, although they've communicated $30,000 saving. I think really what they're saying is they're able to serve and help more clients. So it's actually, and I mean, they charge money for this, so I think they actually get more revenue from leveraging technology like ours. But where this saving or this additional efficiency, however we define it, comes from. So, I talked about that photo processing before. So they take a lot of photos and videos when they're on site. They're able to process them even when they're driving back home. Our workflows take those images and, start processing it. They get back to the office,
right,
and they have 75% of their report already generated before they even get back to the office. Whereas the old world was, upload the picture into your email, take it in your email, put it in the document, scroll through the regulation. This was the regulation I was thinking about at the time. Clearly the AI does that way more effectively. So in processing all the data that they capture in a 4-hour site visit might take 30 to 45 minutes. And then they've got the 75, 80% of their report sitting there on the platform before they even get back into the office. So there's one quantified example. We have, like most of our clients go through pilots, and typically the way that most clients have quantified it is to say how much extra their team was able to do in the pilot period. So this goes back to the point of, it doesn't really replace people, it enhances people. So it really is a co-pilot for them. And I think that if I was to summarize the general productivity improvement or efficiency improvement that most teams get, I would say it's around the 50% mark. So they're doing 50% more. So they're 1.5 times more than what they were without the technology. Because there's still a huge part of the job that AI can't do. It's talking with the teams. It's building a safety culture. It's responding in the field sometimes to people with their quick questions. It's showing presence, all that sort of stuff.
Right.
Doing presentations, doing training. Some people do training. Like AI isn't replacing everything, but yeah, 50% more productivity I think is super cool. And we might as well just segue into one of the questions I know you want to ask. But um, how do people get budget basically for using AI? And by the way, SOTER AI, it's our tool, but there's many AI tools. So you've got computer vision, CCTV solutions. There's a whole bunch of safety AI solutions that are similar to SOTER AI. Maybe not as advanced, but I might be biased. You got wearable technologies. There's a whole bunch of different technologies that you can bring into your workplace. And the way that I would look at this is in trying to quantify the value or get budget, I would start small. I would say I'm doing a time limited trial of this technology. You will have to pay for it most of the time. But you can start small. You don't start across your entire organization. You might start in one facility, and you might start for 2 to 3 months, right? And you would understand before you even launch the technology, what is the problem that you're trying to solve?
Right.
Bringing in solutions when you don't understand the problem is kind of a waste of time. Because like why do you need a better cooking machine if you are in distribution? Like it's you don't have a food manufacturing problem to solve. So you want to make sure you have the right technology to solve the problem, and 80% of the work sometimes is understanding what the problem is that you're trying to solve. But you want to leverage your safety team. You want to reduce incidents. Ultimately, you want to reduce insurance premiums if you're not self-insured. You also want to have less incidents because there's a productivity gain to that as well. You don't want to have an OSHA citation because those things can be expensive. A lot of our clients come to us because they've been cited by OSHA recently, and they're like, don't want that to happen again because it's very, very disruptive. Unbelievably, they all have budget at that point, so that's cool as well. Sometimes you don't have budget before, you definitely do afterwards. But yeah, so there's a number of different metrics that you could look at trying to improve with the technology, and a good technology partner should also work with you on building a proper pilot that you can measure, that you can independently measure. If the vendor's measuring it for you, they will be biased. That's pretty obvious. So you want to have something that you can independently measure as well. And then, request your budget, keep it small. Some of our pilots are in the thousands of dollars, so it's not usually huge amounts of money. Run your pilot. Understand that not every pilot goes smoothly as well. So there is not only trying to prove the value, but you're trying to learn to use the technology as well, and that can be a real a real experience as well. But you're trying to learn that, and then you should get to the end of that pilot period, and you should be able to have those metrics that say, all right, this should be expanded. And then you expand. You might not expand to your whole organization straight away. You might go from one facility to one region, right? And then from one region to then the entire business. But I think my final thing to say on budget, and we talked about the fear of AI, right? And people don't know how to use the technologies and stuff like that. And do a pilot, get your company to pay for using an AI tool, and they're basically going to pay for you to be educated on using AI. So your company pays for it. You get to learn and work with the vendor to understand how to use the technology. And you get to the end of it and you can say, man, I'm an expert in this tool because now I know how to use it, right? And you do that with 2 or 3 tools and you've just survived. Now you're AI literate, you know how to use the technology. So if you can be clever about it as well, you can actually personally get something out of it. And I think that I get pretty excited by that. I have a whole bunch of individual users that get promotions based on the fact that they became power users of SOTER AI. And while I'm happy their organization gets a benefit, I'm super happy for these people as well.
Yeah. That's a really good point, because I think there's a lot of hesitation, like you said, a lot of concern. and really it's a learning growth opportunity for folks to get their feet wet, so to speak, get to learn those tools. You touched on it. You made a couple of really good points. The one was, make sure you have your own organizational goals or metrics that you want to measure, because you want it to be impartial. But you also mentioned your team, and I'm sure other teams will help organizations kind of set up and structure that pilot so that it is time bound and has some measurable results, and then probably some key action items depending on how it goes. Can you share maybe some details on how you guys would help an organization set up an effective pilot?
Yeah. So, well, like purely from our point of view, we want to make we know we're going to have to be approved at CEO, COO, CFO level, and understanding those roles and what they care about. We have to ultimately get to the end of the pilot and make sure that our hero in our story, our user, which is the safety manager, president, vice president, whatever, is prepared enough to stand in front of these people and put them a business case. So, like what we are experts in, our sales team are experts in, is building business cases for our clients. And one of the things is, like, you have to understand, we all have to understand and agree on what is the right metric that we're focused on. Like, are we going to see a 30% reduction in incidents? Or are we going to, avoid hiring one extra safety team member because we're going to use the technology instead? We're not going to go from 15 to 16 people. We're going to have the technology instead. Or are we going to reduce premiums? Unfortunately, not in the 3-month period, but over a longer period of time. Is that the goal? And then everything, once the goal or the goals are agreed on, everything that happens in that pilot should work towards achieving or proving that those goals can be achieved. The second thing that we want to ensure is that we have people using our solution. So we're not just an AI, a black box that don't rely on people. We need to make sure that the people understand how to use the technology as well. So we invest a lot into training people on how to use our solution. We do, like, while it is an online platform, like, we still run in person or most of the time remote training sessions for people. I jump on maybe, I said we had over 200 users. I will jump on maybe 30 to 40% of the calls initially to explain to people how to use it. So, and I really enjoy doing that as well. I get enjoyment out of that. So explaining how, the layer within our platform combines incidents and policies to create a risk register, or we call it risk intelligence layer. I love explaining that to people, explaining how the workflows work that replicate the work that it is that they do, and then how the AI goes through its decision-making process. I explain that to people. My team explains that to people. So we're really invested in making sure that the people have a good experience as well and understand it. And when we do that, we actually have very low churn. So we don't have a lot of people leaving our solution. So I'm also happy to see it actually result into something meaningful as well. So, like, making sure that you end the pilot with a business case and making sure that your users are happy, who will basically fight for your solution to stay and be expanded, probably are the two main focuses for us during a pilot.
Yeah, that's great. Because again, it maybe is worth being said again. I think that there's a lot of folks out there who are curious but concerned, at the same time. And I think that, what you're describing should really reassure people that they should reach out. They should take those initial steps and at least scope out, what a pilot would look like, and understand how it'll impact them personally and how it could impact their company. And I think that's some great advice. One of the things, like, obviously we've heard people talk about, we're in the exponential age. Like, it's not just changes coming at an exponential rate. I know we looked at AI obviously as a Safeopedia, as an online resource, when we first looked at it, it was sort of like $500,000 to build the LLM in order to support people, and then by the time the proposal was done, ChatGPT 4 was out and it was $20. Obviously that's a bit of an exaggeration, but things are changing so quickly. So two of the things I'd like you to maybe share with listeners is like where you think AI is going to go in the next couple of years, but also talk, because I think you might have touched on it, but we sort of skipped over about how the solution is going to get smarter with more interactions, and how that can become even more effective, for an organization, for an industry, and for a platform.
Yeah, I think we were going to have one of the questions around what's the difference between an LLM and a vertical solution. And vertical solutions are really important because, like in our space, the safety space, and the listener space as well, it's the vertical solutions that are built in a way to become better over time. So if you just plug in a question into your ChatGPT client and says, like, find me something on this regulation. Well, a year and a half ago, it actually have done a pretty bad job at that. It wasn't always in all the really early models. Then it would hallucinate. By the way, a lot of people are still stuck on hallucination because when they tried it, a year ago, they weren't as good, and then it's like, oh man, this is rubbish. Like, as you say, the exponential improvement of what we're looking at is just insane. Like, now, when you ask a regulation question in ChatGPT and using the right model, it will find you the answer. Then another agent will take over. It'll say, all right, I have this answer. Is that even correct? Can I find other sources that back up this? It'll do a whole bunch of this reasoning and then give you the answer. Whereas back in the day, it'll just sort of guess even, what we think that regulation might be. But yeah, so vertical solutions are built in a way to become better over time. And the way I describe this for SOTER AI is LLMs for us are just a technology. It's almost just like a coding language. It's a new way to do coding. It's a new way to do stuff within technology. What is our differentiator is context. So when you put your question into ChatGPT, you might get an answer, but you have none of the context of your organization. What we've invested a lot into is building a risk intelligence layer, and I've alluded to that a couple of times. But this is a layer that takes all your incidents that have happened in your organizations. It takes a whole bunch of other data sources like training records, new starters, all that sort of stuff. It analyzes and then breaks down your program documentation into individual controls. It takes hazards that might have been captured as one of those inspections I talked about within our platform, or hazards that have been captured, or hazards that have been reported by your ground people on the ground. It takes that and a whole bunch of other data as well, but your own data, and combines it all into our risk intelligence layer. And what that really is it breaks it into individual risk scenarios. So a risk scenario will be someone slipping on a wet floor. A risk scenario will be cutting your finger from machinery. And then it will say, these are all the incidents that have happened because of that. These are all the controls that exist that should prevent that from happening. Okay? And we do that at a scale that is really, honestly, very impressive. So we even recently had a client that put in 130,000 incidents and all their policy documentation. And our processing cost for that was about $6,000. So it was a bit of a shock actually to have that much, because we're like, well, we weren't expecting that much. And it was a cost that we weren't expecting as well. But anyway, it's fine. We learned. But basically the 6,000 is showing like how much processing actually got done, if you had a human to do that, I don't think you'd finish it in a lifetime, So like that's how technology is moving. It's able to organize it all in the way, not our technology. The LLMs are improving to organize it all in a way then we're building solutions on top of that to then process that information, store that information in a way that when someone does work, when they do an inspection or an incident investigation within our platform, it refers to all that knowledge. And then that knowledge that's been captured in those workflows that I described, that's part of the knowledge source now. So more and more and more context, right?
Right.
And that's one of the ways that these solutions are just getting better and better exponentially because, and then you add something else really important into the mix when the incidents stop happening,
Right.
and now our clients are starting to say that as well. This is actually reinforced learning in a way, like now that the incidents don't happen so much and these risk scenarios start to drop, like our system also understands that and it says, well, what have we done? Why has that incident type or that risk scenario started having less and less incidents? So you throw that into the mix as well. And this is why things are getting exponentially better, like not just for SOTER AI, not just for OpenAI and their models, but every solution that, was early and is now building is getting better and better for these reasons. And then our users are getting better as well. So they're finding more use cases.
Yeah.
They're doing more stuff, feeding more information both ways.
Yeah.
Becoming more competent and comprehensive in what they do in the platform. So they're getting exponentially better as well. So it's so exciting to see everything working together, getting better almost by itself, although we're doing a hell of a lot of work to support it happening. But really, if you almost sometimes you don't do anything and it just gets better because of how it's built. So it's super exciting.
Yeah. No, I like that. It definitely feels like it's getting better and smarter without a lot of effort, even though there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes. So is there any big changes you guys see on the horizon in the next year or two for AI?
Yeah. So agentic systems now are the rage. So I talked a little bit about that before. The old way is ask a question, get an answer. Now systems are being built. Ask a question, get your first answer. Find more sources, sense check. Does it make sense? Like maybe multiple reasoning happening all at the same time, and then give the final answer. So this is like a version of an agentic system. For us, we used to have chat. So we had a chat. Yeah, you ask a question, it would find you the right answer. So we built, ways to retrieve information that would give the right answer. But now we have tools. So a tool can go into that risk intelligence layer that I talked about. So the agent will say, I know this tool exists. Like, tool, do this work for me. Then the answer comes back and he goes, oh, that's interesting. There's another tool, web search. So web search, check this little bit for me. I think we're missing something. So it'll go to the web, it'll find that bit of information, it'll come back. We have video processing tools. We have hundreds of tools. A lot of them aren't explainable even. But you can call all these tools to do individual parts of the task. And what an agentic system will do, it won't. Well, maybe to describe it like this: so the old way to do chat and then get answers was to prompt engineering. So you would tell the LLM, do this, then do this, then do this. So analyze this picture, refer to regulations, find the differences, give the answer back to the human. Now, an agentic system will say, I don't really care how you do it. Like, my programmers don't really program how you do something. An agentic system understands from the user what it is that they're trying to achieve, and then we'll build a way to solve that problem. So it'll reason itself, all right, this person wants to do a risk assessment. How will I do that? I have access to all these different tools. These are the 10 tools out of the 100 that I need. I'm going to go this step 1, this step 2, this step 3. This person said he's interested in fire suppression, so I'm going to focus. Like, I actually have some documentation that I have access to in SOTER AI that is really focused on fire standards or something like that. So I'm going to use that tool instead. And it will work out this way of solving the problem, and then it will go through that process. So a lot of our listeners, I guess, today are used to ask a question and get an answer back in 3 seconds, right?
Right.
With agentic systems, you might ask a question, you might give it a task, I should say, is a better way to say it, and you might get an answer back in 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Or when you're creating that report that I talked about for people that were doing the site audits, process that is built by the agentic system might take 30 to 40 minutes to execute.
Right.
But when you get the answer, it's like, wow, this is not just some hallucinated quick answer. This
Right.
is well thought out. Like it achieved the goal that I was trying to achieve. And yeah, I think that's one of the big changes that we're currently seeing at the moment. Some of the things that I think are going to come next. Firstly, it's how much information you can process. So the 130,000 that I talked about costing us $6,000 or $7,000, not ideal, right? But hopefully that was more than their subscription, by the way. Hopefully, I mean, we're seeing this anyway. It's the Moore's law. It's just getting better. It's doubling every year. The cost is halving every year. So
Right.
you try to do that exact same thing in two years' time, it will probably cost us $10, or something like that. Like it's just
Right.
the pace of like how these things are getting better and cheaper. Like amazing. But on top of that, I don't think things are going to get cheaper. I think things are going to stay at the same cost. It's just that the capability is going to get better and better and better. So I think that's really exciting.
Yeah.
What I think also, what comes next for us is we build agents within our platform that don't require humans. So we will have an agent that goes over all your data, all your workflows that you've done, all your documentations, your risk intelligence, to spot opportunities, particularly when a new piece of data that might come in is particularly really interesting. So it might just come in a random sort of upload of something, someone trying to do something else. But we'll have agents that are scouring the platform, looking for like, oh shit, something you need to know about this right now, So I think that's pretty exciting. And then ultimately, I think platforms like ours, systems like ours, will actually start making decisions. And I said there will always be a human in the loop, but I think some decisions can be made without the human in the loop, because of the time pressure or urgency. So CCTV is a great one for this, right? So they spot someone not wearing the right PPE. Like, let the person know and let the operation know, don't go filter that through the safety person who is doing something else, right? To then follow up in, the next day, the next shift, because it might actually be too late. So I think there will be automated decisions being made. I think that will come. Again, I still don't think that will replace people. It'll just make decisions that need to be made in real time, while people focus on, more strategic things, long-term things, or the human side of things still. So I think a lot of change coming. Everything's moving at, a million miles an hour. I'm almost immune now to change, I would say, because things have changed so much in the last year and a half. That I think it's still exciting, but it's a lot of change very quickly.
Yeah, and I think that that's once you start leveraging a tool like this, again, it's probably scary and overwhelming at first, but then, like you say, you become a little bit immune, and it's more about, hey, how far can we take it? So I think it's an interesting opportunity for safety professionals. If you're listening and you're on the fence and you're not sure, give Matthew and his team a call, and like you say, dip your toe in the water and start your journey. So any parting words for listeners today, or any specific advice?
Yeah, I think honestly, that last thing that you said really sums it up quite well. And we are now in our third generation product. So we helped safety professionals sell wearable technology to prevent injuries. When most people laughed me out of the room back in 2018. Like, I really got laughed out of a lot of rooms. There's no way that a technology that you can build will be accurate. It doesn't work. It's going to make mistakes. We had 70 customers by 2021, I think it was, and on average they were reducing musculoskeletal injuries by over 50%. And we still have that many customers of this technology. Then I went through the computer vision to help with ergonomic assessments, which was a smaller product, but a pretty cool product nonetheless. And I got laughed out of the room by a lot of ergonomists who said, the technology isn't accurate. It can't measure risks properly. How do you know the weights? Like how do you, all that sort of stuff. But there were a section of the safety community that I really engaged with and really enjoy engaging with. It's the curious ones. It's the ones that say, what if it can work? Not why it won't work. And unfortunately, the safety industry is very risk adverse. It's almost why they're in the job, right? So, so but I really, really encourage people to be curious, to maybe if it is even scary, take the scary step. Hopefully, you find a company that is going to guide you. And I really pride myself personally on guiding people through the new technology. I get a whole deal of personal gratitude by helping people understand the new technology, especially if they're curious and open-minded and don't laugh me out of the room too much. But I really do enjoy that. My company enjoys that as well, but not just me. There is a whole bunch of people out there that also enjoy this. There's a whole bunch of influencers on LinkedIn that you will see that are very excited and always talking about AI technologies. A lot of them will also jump on a call with you, help you, even consult you on what solution to try or what to do and how to do it. So there are a lot of people that will help you, and I really encourage people to take that opportunity. It's still very early days, so it's not like you've missed the boat or anything like that.
Right.
But in a few years, the boat will have well and truly left the shore. And please be on the boat, please.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it will be kind of tough, I think.
Yeah, I think that's I was use the horse left the barn analogy, but that's the boat's leaving. There's still time to get on there for sure, but it's like we spoke about earlier. It's just changing exponentially, and if the sooner you get in, the easier that transition is going to be. And even if you're thinking, oh well, it's 4 or 5 years, and I'll be retired or I'll be in a senior role. It's like it's changing so fast that you need to be getting in on it today, I think.
Yeah, I see a lot of that last thing you said. I see, unfortunately, a bit of that saying, it's for my team to understand, not me.
Right.
I don't know how you can manage a team that will be so reliant on this technology in the next few years if you don't understand it yourself. So there's another not to be negative, but a little warning for people. It's like, man, really try to understand it, please.
Yeah. You owe it to your future self to get on board and start learning the tools and understanding how it works.
Yeah, spot on.
Yeah. Great. Well, thanks, Matthew. That was a great conversation. Hope it inspired people to pick up the phone or send an email and start thinking about introducing AI technology within their organization. It's going to help improve people's careers and most importantly, help keep people safe and improve productivity and efficiency within their organization. So thanks for the inspiring and insightful conversation today. We'll include your coordinates in the description below so people can reach out and connect with you or your team and get started on their AI journey.
Thanks, Scott. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.